When the garage door jerks upward, the Rolls seems to flinch first, but when the key touched the column, the whole cabin seemed to listen. You reach for the key, but something pale peeks above the visor. You should leave it there. But the hanging light keeps swinging. Then your shoe brushed the rear mat, and something stiff shifted underneath. Then you lower it carefully, because the hidden envelope looks deliberately placed. Then your key warms inside your palm, because the silence feels expectant. For a second you froze, because the sound came back like a reply. For a second you do not touch it, so the silence grows heavier. After one touch, dust parts across the hood like breath on glass. So you reached behind the seat, but your hand found only cold paper. But the glove box hangs barely open, and a silver lighter glints there. When you open the door, cracked leather sighs and something metallic shifts. When you lifted it out, dust slid off a folded road map. When you ease it wider, the gloves and empty cassette case sit aligned. For a second, the rear footwell looks occupied. By the time you freeze halfway in, one route felt already chosen. You stare at the missing tape, because absence can be arranged like memory. By the time you sit, the dashboard clock is already watching back. After that, the cracked window clicked and night air touched your wrist. By the time you look back, the dashboard clock has shivered 1 minute forward. But under the visor string, a sealed edge peeks out before you start. Then somewhere beyond the garage, gravel answered, so you didn't look up. After that, you finally lift the envelope, and the key feels warmer. But when you lift the glove box latch, something inside shifts gently. When the glove box finally drops, nothing spills. Everything waits in exact order. When you lift the floor mat, a second key clicks free. Then a pair of gloves rests there, palms up, as if waiting. The gloves lie atop a lighter and empty cassette case. Too deliberate, but the metal is warmer than the cabin, as if held recently. For a second, you do not touch them, because the pose feels deliberate, but under them, a folded map notice heel marks to one dark behind the driver's seat. When you finally slide one aside, a folded map edge appears underneath. For a second, you freeze, because the line ends near the river chapel. For a second, you picture someone stopping there, unable to climb out, so you ease the paper free, and one route crease darkens. Then the dashboard clock coughs alive, and the cabin suddenly feels informed. After that, the dashboard clock jerks alive, though the battery still sleeps. By the time you unfold it, your own street is nowhere near. You look toward the house, but the cracked window gives nothing back. So you press the lighter in, because ritual sometimes reveals what logic won't. After that, the car stops feeling purchased and starts feeling entrusted. So you slide the map beside your thigh, like accepting a confidence. By the time it pops back cold, the visor hangs slightly open. Then your thumb finds something hard behind the visor, and you freeze. And when the key turns again, you listen for where it wants next. And when your fingers reach upward, when your knuke something sealed shifts above your knuckles. Then your thumb finds a clean crescent, as if someone hesitated here often. But the marked route ends in blank farmland, and that feels deliberate. Then the silver lighter appears there, wrapped carefully like something still needed. But behind the clock, a photo corner lifts, and your breath shortens. Then the dashboard clock matches the folded crease, as if both stopped together. For a second it sparks, and the clock jumps 1 minute ahead. For a second, it is only the open rear door beside a hedge. Because the lighter is wrapped inside a glove, the care feels intimate. By the time you look up, the house chime answers that exact minute. Then you see the same hedge outside, and the room seems to narrow. So when it sparks once, you catch a burned edge inside the case. Because of that, you finally lower the visor and find the envelope. Because the lighter was kept so neatly, you try it, expecting nothing. For a second, the ash in the hinge looks more personal than trash. But you do not open it, because the seal when it sparks, recently a scorched ring appears, and you kill the flame fast. By the time you look up, the house is watching through the window. Then a draft moves the tag string, so you glance toward the window. By the time you spread the map wider, the route ends in a loop. When your hand reaches the visor again, taking the envelope feels like crossing. When you face forward again, the rear seat seems occupied, just briefly. So your hand rises to the visor, and still you wait 1 beat. After all that, you turn the key halfway, and something nearly answers. You step back from the rolls, because staying suddenly feels like trespassing. You step back from the door, because carrying this grief feels borrowed. You step back from the door, because carrying this feels suddenly borrowed. Then your hand finds the door frame, but you still cannot pull away. But the car stays under the lamp like it still expects someone. But when you turn, pause. The lowered visor sits wrong in the lamplight. For a second, the lamplight slips lower, and something glints beneath the seat. Then you lean in, your fingers find paper there, and the visor drops flatter than carelessness ever leaves. When you kneel, the silver lighter is wrapped carefully inside a handkerchief. For a second, you think it is trash. Then the sealed envelope lands. For a second, the whole car changes from forgotten wealth into restraint. It is not hidden like trash, but kept like an unfinished errand. You hold it carefully, because untouched paper can still look handled. By the time you breathe again, you know it was hidden gently. By the time you unfold the cloth, a second key falls out. By the time you set it beside the map, pause. The route changes meaning. So it was never the engine that failed, only the last intention. So the car was never abandoned. Someone meant to come back prepared. When your hand finds the selector, you understand they were not stranded. After all this, your hand still reaches for the key, almost apologizing. After you close your fist around it, the visor above you shifts. So you take the key again and reach for the envelope first. But you stop with it unopened. And the next mile, wait, just listen, because the idle sounds almost relieved. For a second, you keep the envelope closed and watch dust settle. For a second, you almost keep the envelope because nobody asked otherwise. Then your hand finds the envelope again, and this time it feels lighter. But the idling engine sounds patient, so your thumb finally breaks the seal. But the wheel feels lighter now, because this stop was never yours. But when you notice the mailbox by the gate, the choice turns physical. When the paper opens, your shoulders sink because the message is only an address. Then you take the envelope, and the cold air makes it real. So you turn the key off, and the silence finally tells you yes. Then you glance at the map, and the marked road suddenly feels merciful. When your knuckles hover at the door, you feel his unfinished breath. After all this distance, Your legs still hesitate on the wet pavement. After all this, keeping the car would mean keeping someone else's hesitation. So you do not knock, and the slot accepts what he could not. By the time you reach the box, so you ease it into gear, smaller, and the empty seat stops feeling occupied. After it slips away, the silence changes from burden into simple mourning. Then you let go, and the ache changes shape instead of leaving. By the time the gate disappears, your hands know this is delivery. By the time you sit again, the passenger seat is only a seat. When you turn back to the car, it waits differently somehow. And when the town lights thin out, you follow the route anyway. And when the engine answers, you drive home, owning only the